Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the 2025 Spiel the Jahres event, and we're not going to talk about what you think we are. We're going to talk about stuff that's actually important for board games. So no, we're not going to talk about the games that won. Yes, the games that won, it's awesome that you see good games recognized. This means those games will get more prints, they'll get more recognition, probably non-board gamers will end up buying them, and that's good for the hobby. But there's stuff that's really a lot more important to the hobby and to board games and to we as people as a whole. And I'm going to talk about those things. And it's actually something that's been bothering me for quite some months now. And I gotta give kudos where kudos are due, because this event, the Spiel des Jahres, touched on that, and I think that's incredible. So basically, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to focus on this news on the Spiel des Jahres, besides the games that really don't matter at all in the big picture. What matters is this. As we can see in the news, and I'm going to Board Game Wire, the chairman for Spiel des Jahres had this to say. He said it touched on the tariffs and on the tariffs, but what he actually said on the tariffs was this, and I don't see this being covered anywhere else. It probably is, but I just didn't see it. And the thing is, he said, tariffs will mean there's an obstacle to the production and release of new games, but I'm rather worried about the restrictions of liberties of all sorts in the US. Because game playing is a cultural good, and creative brains need freedom of press, need free expression. And this is why our association is advocating for freedom, and we are also committed to the project Playing for Tolerance, against anti-Semitism, against racism, and the like. So, why do I want to touch on this? This is super important. Why did I say that this has been bothering me for months? Because I'm someone who watches a lot of board game content on YouTube. Mostly, the content that I watch in my life is a little bit of movies, a ton of TV shows, and a ton of YouTube board game. Which means most of the content I watch is either TV shows or YouTube. And on YouTube, 100% of the time I just watch content about board games. That's all I watch. I love board games. I love knowing more about board games, about stuff related to the hobby. So I spend a lot of time on that. And there's quite some YouTubers that I really enjoy and I watch almost religiously. And what's been bothering me for these past months is that, first, let me just start by saying this. I don't live in the USA, and I'm not saying I don't live in the USA. But the USA is important for the world for various reasons. What happens in the USA tends to affect the rest of the world a bit. And when it comes to board games, the USA, it kind of consumes almost half of all the consumption of board games. So if something happens in the USA, it has a tendency to affect everything related to the board game industry, at least half of it, which is a lot. So it is important what happens in the USA. For many other reasons, but just touching on board games. And what's happening in the USA, and what has been bothering me for months, is that they have elected a president that has shown fascism tendencies for a while now, even in the end of his first term. And many people could think stuff like, oh, maybe that's just a joke, I mean, it's never going to happen. But the truth is that in this second mandate, it's become more and more apparently clear. And what's my problem? What's the reason related to board games, and the thing that I consume a lot of board game content is that for the past months, all the YouTubers I see covering board game content, I'm not saying they have the largest audience in the world, but they have large audiences. And they have been mostly not talking about this at all. And for me, that's really weird. I'm going to give you an extreme example. Imagine that today, in your country, Nazi Germany is happening. But today, and you have YouTubers that you watch. And as people are being deported or killed or whatever extreme stuff was happening in Nazi Germany, imagine your regular YouTuber that you watch just keep talking about this content and never mention this at all. That's just fucking weird. That's really weird. And you gotta ask yourself, either he's complacent with this and he's okay with this, or he's just like afraid to be political or afraid to say something and lose subscribers. And I have a problem with that, because that's stupid. That's really short-sighted. The thing is, again, going with the extreme example, do you think that if a country turns into a dictatorship or into a fascist regime, do you think that you're not going to lose subscribers? You're going to lose a lot of subscribers. And to anyone who's not a YouTuber, it's easy to put yourself in that place in this regard. You're going to lose subscribers. You're going to lose people commenting. Everything that you say on a video is going to be, you're not just going to be able to upload a video. Everything is going to be changed. How much you receive and how much YouTube receives and how YouTube does their policies and controls content, everything is going to change. If you have no idea of this, and you have history class, you should know what a dictatorship is. And if you don't, what the fuck are you doing? But if you do, this is super serious. Losing a few subscribers is nothing compared to that. That is just much worse. So the fact that you're not saying nothing, you're not talking about it, it's just stupid. You know, you have a YouTube about board games. Yeah, you should talk only about board games. But sometimes there's stuff that is just so fucking important that you have to mention it. And for me, it's crazy that nobody mentions it. To the point that in the past few months, I have almost felt guilty watching some YouTubers, and I've actually spent a little less time watching content because it just made me feel bad. And like everyone, I'm a human, I'm flawed, and I'm an hypocrite. And even though I really disagree with it, I keep watching their content. Because I'm an hypocrite, I'm flawed, I'm human. And we all are, and that's okay. But we should talk about this stuff. So, I've already touched that this is an important message. That's why the chairman and the Spiel Jahres touched on it. That's much more important than tariffs and everything else. It's much more important than board games than... Because if it happens, the more it happens and the worse it gets, it's going to affect everyone. Board games, everything. And when you are in a country, because most YouTubers I watch are in the USA, when you are in a country and people are getting deported, people are fighting the police, people are going to jail with no due process, and you just don't mention it at all. What the fuck are you doing? I'm not saying that you have to have a full video on it or give a super political comment, but you have to mention it. We have a responsibility to mention it. We all have in our daily lives, and you much more on your YouTube channel. Sorry, the video got cut just a little bit because I use my smartphone for filming videos and I have an 8-minute cap on 4K footage because... And that's it. So, going back, you have a responsibility. We all do. Going again to the extreme example. You can, for example, think about, again, Nazi Germany, and remember, Hitler was elected democratically. And you can think to yourself, I think people often do when they think about it, they think, how did these people from Germany at that time were so stupid that they elected a dictator? And even if they didn't know, how did they let it progress and progress and progress until it got a dictatorship? Because if you don't know, just go and see an history channel or something. It didn't happen like in one day or in 1 hour. It happened slowly, bit by bit, law by law, across some time. And how did those people let that happen? The same way that you are doing now, by not mentioning it, being completely unaware, or just like, it doesn't concern me. No, it concerns you. And we, the people, everywhere, are the reason that these things can or cannot happen. Sometimes we have no say in this. Sometimes our country is invaded, like it's happening in Ukraine or anywhere else. But when you're electing something democratically, and then things kept changing, and you're not doing nothing about it, and I know some of you viewing, and a lot of people in the US are aware of this, and are against this, and are doing protests, and everything else, I know, but a lot of you are not. And the fact that lots of people that have platforms or in their daily lives are not commenting this, are like letting this slide by, you, just like those people now in Germany, are the reason things are happening. You have a responsibility. You are not the perpetrator, but you have the responsibility. You are the last line of defense. You're the one that actually decides. So that's on you. And that's the reason I've been like getting a bit sick watching YouTubers because they never mention that. And even just now, this week, I've watched YouTubers talking about the Spiel Jahres, and no one mentions what actually matters in the Spiel Jahres, that is this message. Not that a good game won the award, it's this message that matters. And again, even though that has happened, for example, the fact that fascism is rising in the USA, then something that derives from that, a symptom of that, happened that affected board games. And that was tariffs. Suddenly, a lot of YouTubers were talking about the tariffs. Not all, but some. And I commend that. That's good. You're talking about the tariffs and explaining why they're bad. You're like looking into the industry and trying to make people aware of that. But then you realize that there's still a lot of people that fight that are like, no, that's not true. Like what the government is saying is the correct thing and tariffs are needed and nothing wrong is happening. No, something wrong is happening. And I commend you for talking about it, but you're missing the big picture. This is happening of all of that came before. And you completely missed that. So how are you now surprised that suddenly you start talking about it and a lot of people don't follow? You have a responsibility to be aware of it from the start. That's just what I wanted to say with this video. There's a couple more things, but I'm just going to try and keep it short and stay here. This was a topic I wanted to talk about from the beginning, but I didn't really feel like I could because my ability to talk on camera, everything else was just super bad. And I'm not saying I'm awesome or good now, but at least I'm better. So maybe this is a better time. And I'm sure there will be time to touch about it again on the future because I do have more to say, especially on my personal experience with all of these concerning board games and YouTube board games and people that have a platform. So anyway, this is what I wanted to say. And sorry that I maybe clickbaited you into the news about Spiel des Jahres, and it's still about Spiel des Jahres, but it's mostly I don't even want to say it's a political thing, because I don't think that you being for democracy and you wanting people to be free, I don't think that's a political stance. That's like a humanity stance. I want people to be okay everywhere. I'm not concerned if this is this political party or that one or whatever. I don't understand anything about it. I just want like basic rights for human beings and not what's like going on in a lot of countries, and it's now starting to go on USA. So that's all I wanted to talk about, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you agree with this video, because that's a relief that people, and I know there's people who agree, but it's always a relief. And if you don't, I hope this at least gives you food for thought, because it's important. The more people that are aware and that talk about this, just, being aware and talking about this is like, it's a big step, and it's a step that more people need to do. And that's it. Again, hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, play more games and stay awesome.